Todd. Good whenever. Hi.
I like the answer. Oh. Okay. Welcome to our September 19th Village of Gates Mills Council meeting. We have quite a full agenda tonight. Beth. Eton.
Here.
Allworder.
Here.
Deacon.
Here.
Press. Steinbrink.
Here.
Turner. Here. Welsh.
Here.
Thank you. First are the revised minutes of the regular council meeting of July 18th.
Move to approve.
Eton.
Yes.
Allworder.
Yes.
Deacon. Abstain. Press. Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner. Yes. Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you. Next are the minutes of the regular council meeting of August 15th, 2023. So moved.
Second.
Eton.
Yes.
Allworder.
Yes.
Deacon.
Yes.
Press.
Yep.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner. Yes. Welsh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next is pay ordinance 1277 for $430,122.29.
Move to approve.
Second.
Eton.
Yes.
Allworder.
Yes.
Deacon.
Yes.
Press.
Yeah.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner. Yes. Welsh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Financial statement and treasurer's report, Steve.
Good evening. We published the financial report just earlier this afternoon, so many of you would not have had a chance to take a look at it. And therefore, I might expect some questions either after the session or through email. That said, the financial statements were provided for the month of August and for the period ending August 31st, the mayor, the clerk, and council prior to the council meeting with their Friday package. For the general fund, revenue for the month was $1,023,000. That consisted of $805,000 of real estate tax receipts, $150,000 of municipal income tax revenue, and $68,000 of other revenue. As you know, tax amounts represent collections to the village by the taxing agencies that are then forwarded to the village. The village is dependent on the timing of those agencies' billing and collections and the timing of the taxpayers' remittances. We do not follow accrual accounting. We follow governmental cash accounting, and so those amounts are recorded when they are received. For real estate taxes, we're expecting the full year budget to be received. The 8 months, for the first 8 months, the receipts are slightly ahead of the prior year. We started with a slow collection year, you may remember, and then got caught up. And as the underlying basis of calculating real estate taxes hasn't changed, we're expecting the budget amount for the full year to be received. Municipal income tax revenues are less predictable. For the month of August, it was $150,000. We have been reporting for several months now that tax receipts in 23 have been less than in 22. For the 8 months in 23, income tax revenues of $1.5 million are below the 22 amounts by $870,000. As discussed, we've conferred with Rita on expectations for 23 collections to see whether there's previous guidance to us from which we did our budget is different. The updated projection of 21-25 would produce a $475,000 shortfall between budget and projection. I don't have any further data from Rita, but we did go and take a look at receipts that we did get in the last 4 months of last year as an indicator. And if that amount were to come in as it has, it would exceed the 21-25. That's, again, just a data point. It's not a conclusive projection. Other source revenue of $610,000 is favorable to the prior year by $103,000. We have higher receipts in almost all categories except ambulance income. Rental income from the cell tower was up. interest on investments is increased, and higher mills building rental income has been received as well. On the expenditure side, expenditures for the month of August were $434,000, $424,000 for operations, and $436,000 of transfers to other funds. As you know, the general fund supplies a significant amount of funds to many of the other funds of the village. At times, we need to transfer those amounts to make the payments out of those funds. Our monthly operating costs average about $450,000, so the $424,000 is right on. Certain vendors also invoice the village on a quarterly basis. For the year, the legal and professional fees are up about 10% or $16,000 due to increased rates and more matters that require attention. Our income tax expense is down as a function of lower collections. For the first 8 months of the year, our expenditures were $4.6 million compared to $3.7 million last year. If we subtract out those transfers, our cash expenditures were $3.558 million this year compared to $3.314 million last year, an increase of about 10%. The police department is on budget in 23, except for the $90,000 deposit payment that we made with the Lyndhurst courts upon the commencement of the traffic program in August. You may recall from the minutes of last meeting, we needed to provide a deposit to the court as they are paid when the violations are mailed. In the fire department, we have spent greater amounts on personnel costs and on ambulance and EMS costs. The additional volume of fire calls required our fire department personnel has risen over 58% this year to 158 calls. That includes a record 42 calls in the month of July. I trust you'll hear more of that from the fire chief in a few minutes. As to the EMS, calls are up 40% this year to 151. Those costs are $357,000 this year compared to $233,000 last year. We can't expect one more quarterly invoice from Mayfield Village this year. They bill us on a quarterly basis. We'll probably get a bill in October for the third quarter. In the service department, we spent more on upgrades to the village hall and Mills building. We purchased the budgeted front end loader. For the 8 months of the year, then the village has been operating with a general fund shortfall of $109,000. We had budgeted for a break-even year. Our results are lower than budget due to lower income tax receipts, higher fire and EMS costs due to more volume, costs to start the traffic program, and the emergency Gates Mills Boulevard road repair. In my view, it is possible that we could end the year at a shortfall of several $100,000 rather than break even. The general fund cash balance at the end of August was $7,700,000 compared to the beginning of the year of $7,800,000. So we have not felt that impact. Other funds, the village is required to maintain other special purpose funds by statute and contract. Cash in these special funds amounted to $2,310,000. The ARPA funds, the American Recovery funds that have been awarded to and received by the village have been deposited into that separate fund. I'll be providing to council and the mayor at the September meeting, actually they now have in their places, a schedule of select funds that address the balances, the sources, the uses that relate to capital improvement projects. So let me just comment on two things on there. We are here at the middle of September. We have 3.5 months to go. We likely will have a shortfall. It's not going to be devastating by any means. The primary reasons have been explained over the last several months. Lower income tax receipts, higher EMS costs, higher fire costs, and some repairs to roads, the Gates Mills Boulevard being one, and a few others that we had not expected to be problems when we budgeted last year. The village is in a solid financial position. We can certainly pay all of our bills and pay them well, and we don't need to make any immediate adjustments for that. However, when we get to the budgeting time, come October, November, we'll be taking a sharper look with our pencils to make sure that we have perhaps budgeted for contingencies that we don't know about, but should consider, as well as learning from some of the experience we have on fire and EMS volumes and on income tax receipts. Janet and I spent also a fair amount of time the last 2 days. You have in front of you a one-sheet piece of paper that will cover some of that sometime today. There's a lot of activity now that we're almost into the fourth quarter on the roads. We've got the road contract that we agreed to and approved. We have in front of you a request for fixing the culvert on Hill Creek. We have paid for completely the Gates Mills Boulevard sinkhole. And we have the culvert, some bids in on the culverts for Mayfield Road. All of those come from different, or will be funded by different sources. That which is not specifically raised for that money, for example, the ARPA funds for infrastructure, have to come out of the capital improvement fund, which is fueled by the general fund. So as to educate council and to hopefully try to anticipate some questions, we put together a schedule that shows if we go forward with those programs at the amounts that are suggested, here is what fund those dollars will come out of, and here is what fund balance will be after that happens. Okay. That's for illustration, and we can cover that later. And Mayor, when you get to that part of the agenda, if there's still time, I'd be happy to start that conversation by going through the schedule if you think that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you very much.
Questions?
Next,
Questions?
okay,
I recall when we put together the last long-term financial projection, late last year, beginning of this year, we had an all funds deficit, not a general fund, an all funds deficit of almost $500,000. Since then, all I'm aware of is that our expenses have gone up by $300,000, largely due to the EMS costs, and our tax revenues have gone down by $500,000. So in my head, I think we're facing a large deficit this year in all funds. And that bothers me. That's just an observation. I sent you an email some time ago with those questions in it, and I'm looking forward to discussing this at the Finance and Budget Committee, presumably later this month or early next.
Okay, thank you. Michael.
Steve, I've got two. One, I know you're not elected yet, but it would be nice if, since you are the presumptive and running unopposed, if we could perhaps designate the new treasurer so that that person can participate in the budget process and not come in after the fact and inherit it, not understanding all the conversations that took place. That's number one. Number two is I'd like to have the budget and finance meeting committee get together with Ancora. Right now, interest rates are probably about as high as they're going to go. And I think it'd be a really good time to look at how we're investing our money before they start going south on us and we might lose an opportunity.
Thanks to both of you for those two questions. David, to answer your question, I don't know how big the operating shortfall will be this year. As you know, we've had surpluses the last 2 years and we've maintained those surpluses and not spent that money. So there's a certain amount, as we said, on the cash basis and the government basis, where there are ups and downs in the corporate world of accrual accounting. Those would be all flattened out through accruals and deferrals, and things would look much straighter. So we have some of that by the nature of how governments account for their business. That said, we do need to take a hard look and see whether some of those items will recur. And can we do things with the ambulance and the EMS costs? Perhaps we've never charged. We should think about charging at some level for some kind of a service. There are a lot of things that we, through the Budget and Finance Committee, I think will have some meaty topics to talk about. Michael, your point about the upcoming elections and so on, thank you. I think the process is that the new mayor selects candidates for treasurer and suggests those to council. That would be something that would happen early next year. But I'd be happy to start looking at my replacement so that he or she can participate sometime in the winter in the budget process. We certainly don't want to put somebody in and say, here's the numbers. And they have had no sweat in the game, so to speak. So thank you for that comment.
Ancora.
And Ancora, yes. They will be the next Budget and Finance Committee.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Hey, Steve, one question. Did Rita indicate that other municipalities are having a similar dip? Or have they given you any other general, trend that they're seeing?
I would say if you asked them about the communities, you'd get all different answers. So let me hold on that and get you a better answer, maybe by what we would call kind of our neighboring communities. We do follow pretty closely what happens in the 10 communities that surround us, primarily for compensation purposes, to make sure we're competitive, et cetera. So we can perhaps, Janet, ask them to, Rita, to do something on our comparable communities and see what that looks like.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to know, good to know what's driving that, if there's some factors that are driving that dip.
Well,
They'll probably know better after September.
I think we know now. I think on the income tax thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, difference, the 500,000 roughly, is because two people who paid income tax last year aren't paying it this year. And that means it just reflects what we've got in this village. We've got a lot of people whose income is constant, and a lot of people, a few people, I'm sorry, fortunate to have them, who pay a lot of tax if they don't go somewhere else to claim their tax domicile. And two items, I think, Steve, were two individuals who have decided to file their taxes elsewhere. So that's not anything anybody else will be suffering. That will just be us.
And I
It's
think,
unique to us. It's not systematic.
and I think there was a third, right, Steve, that we had to reimburse?
Yes.
Yeah, if we go back about 2 months in the minutes, we have a big audience today. We won't make this a finance meeting, but you're all right. We had two large items. We had a refund due to someone who prepaid too much, and they prepaid too much in 22. It required us to reimburse them in 23. So there are some of those anomalies.
Unique to us.
Thank you.
Just to do a little bit of math, though, our income tax rate is 1%, and we're going to be down $1 million versus last year. That means that somehow we had two villagers change and pay taxes elsewhere that earned $100 million.
Correct.
And that'd be, I'd like to meet them, and maybe they're out there, but
Maybe they're only paying half.
so,
In which case it's-
Chip, they relocated.
yeah.
You can't meet them. They moved.
Yeah, apparently. Anyways, just,
No,
Okay,
I think there's more than just that, but I don't know. Anyways.
thank you. Next is mayor's report. We have a few announcements. First off, thank you to our fire department, service department, police department. There was a lot of extra work with the storm that we had. It was wow, because we had a lot of people without power for days. And I think we learned quite a few things. I know Sandra, we've met and tried to wrap our hands around a few things we could do going forward. So thank you to everybody, because there was Tom was unbelievable. I think he was here 24/7 for 2 or 3 days in a row. He's here somewhere. There he is. We thank all of you for all the help. The Improvement Society Candidates Night is on Tuesday, the 26th from 6 to 8:30. I hope everyone will come and attend it. The Village New Residents event will be September 29th at 6:30, and the new residents have gotten invitations to come to that. And that's all my announcements. Next,
The candidates night, it's, are you sure it's 6:30? Or is that,
Candidates night is September 26th.
right, at what time?
6 to 8:30, isn't it?
No,
No.
7 to 9.
Oh, 7 to 9?
And while we're on the topic, very quickly, the booklets have been sent to the printer. We approved them over the weekend, let's say. And they are being printed and then mailed just as the pink sheet is printed and mailed. So those should be in mailboxes imminently. This
Great.
week for sure.
So just to confirm, it's 7 to 9 here, a week from tonight. Candidates night.
Correct.
And the new residents event is being held where?
Here,
Here,
In this room, Community House,
6:30 to 8.
6:30 to 8. Yeah.
invitations went out for that event.
No, I just wanted to get that on the record. Good.
Thank you. Next is Resolution 2023-35, a resolution confirming the mayor's appointments of the fire chief, emergency coordinator, assistant fire chief, and fire captain, and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Anton,
Yes.
Allworder,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes. Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
That was to suspend the rules. Now we,
So moved to
Second.
accept the mayor's recommendation.
Anton,
Yes.
Allworder,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
thank you. Tom, want to come up and your wife? I don't know, there she is.
No,
Yeah, go up. Okay, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Tom Majeski,
I, Thomas Justy,
do hereby swear that I will support
hereby swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Gates Mills,
Charter and ordinances of the Village of Gates Mills,
and that I will honestly,
that I will
faithfully, and impartially discharge my duties as fire chief,
discharge my duties as fire chief,
to which I have been appointed
which I have been appointed
according to law
according to law,
and to the best of my ability.
to the best
So help me God.
of my ability.
Congratulations. The wives are going to pin the badges on the chiefs tonight. Don't stab them. Rob? That's no good. Oh. Thank you. We can move back. No. From this- Oh. I don't know. Something's wrong. Oh. If you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Robert Jameson,
I, Robert Jameson,
do hereby swear that I will support
do hereby swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Gates Mills,
the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Gates Mills,
and that I will honestly,
and that I will honestly,
faithfully, and impartially
faithfully, and impartially
discharge my duties as Assistant Fire Chief,
discharge my duties as Assistant Fire Chief,
to which I have been appointed
to which I have been appointed
according to law
according to law
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Mike? Where's your wife? Come over this way because that camera focuses over there. Right hand.
My hand.
I, Michael Pike,
do hereby swear that I will support
do hereby swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Gates Mills,
the Charter and ordinances of the Village of Gates Mills,
and that I will honestly,
and that I will honestly,
faithfully, and impartially
faithfully, and impartially
discharge my duties as Captain / Fire Marshal,
discharge my duties as Captain, Fire Marshal,
which I have been appointed
which I have been appointed
according to law
according to law
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Yeah, I think so. We thank you all for coming.
Great turnout.
Actually, the fire.
Yeah.
Years and years and years.
Wait a minute for me later.
Well, here I am 40 years later, still there, but I saw him in, but I saw him, last council meeting, and here he is today.
Here.
Yeah, Eugene's kind of an icon.
Forty-two. She's not here.
Dramatic.
She is here.
I can't see. I can't quite see. Green, red. Next on the agenda is to find out about the council meeting in November right before Thanksgiving and the council meeting in December right before Christmas. Sandra, do you have a problem with those dates or?
I do, in November.
Before Thanksgiving?
I don't know if that matters, because it's really on tape, if I'm the only one.
Anybody else? Okay, then we'll leave it as is. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the clerk's report.
Nothing to report.
Any committee reports?
I'm going to give a sort of an ad hoc on the Recreation Committee. We didn't meet, but we do keep tabs. The main activity of the Recreation Committee in the summer is tennis and now pickleball. Want to report that the use for pickleball has just exploded this year, particularly. They don't have statistics, but it is very, very popular. We don't get that much activity for tennis, but given the popularity of pickleball, it is impairing a little bit for those that do want to play tennis. But in addition, there's more demand for pickleball than even the two courts that we have. Those that are most involved are kicking around the prospect of, could we figure out a way to add some more pickleball? It doesn't really work on the tennis courts, to try to redo some way to add capacity on the tennis courts. So they are working on some things. I'm trying to help guide that. I don't have anything to report at this point, but if we come up with some things, you'll hear more about it. But it certainly is a very very popular sport. One thing I feel that we've learned from the coffee shop is that, creating some activity in the village center brings villagers more in. I know every time I'm there, I just end up talking to so many people. It's just so nice. And pickleball's doing the same thing, both with residents within the village, as of course, people from outside. So I think it's something that we'll certainly want to at least look at, but just wanted to brief you that some things are, they're trying to see if there's anything we can do about it.
Chip,
Thank you.
are the bocce courts being used? Sorry, are the bocce courts being used excessively?
I don't know. I know we used them once this summer. I just have no feel. Dave, do you have any sense of activity?
There were a couple planned events with Community Club, but I believe one got canceled because of weather. I think the first one did go and was good, but I'm not sure.
That's an interesting question, David. So
I've got two questions on committees. One is, we talked several months ago about 640 Chagrin River Road and organizing a committee. I think Celeste McClung and
Correct.
Jared, somebody, but I've lost track of where that, my last recollection is they were going to come back to us with a scope and a purpose and all that. But I don't know where that stands.
I'm hoping that we'll get that going and come back in October, because tonight we're going to go forward with fixing the architectural board and the historic board. Correct, Lori?
Okay, the second one is the charter committee. The charter committee approved a final draft, probably 2 months ago. And I thought it was shooting for this. I was surprised that it wasn't on the agenda. So I don't know where that stands.
I think Todd was working on it.
It was about 5 weeks ago we met and the committee met. I was given 18 different sections of the charter to revise, and I apologize, I have not gotten all those done. But I will have them out well in advance of the October meeting, progressing. Thank you.
Any other committee reports?
The cemetery committee, we did meet, and the mayor has found some very nice donations for lots. At this point, she does not want the number released, but she has a list of a couple pages, I guess Janet has, to satisfy some of the requests that we've had throughout the years. I look back at my records. We've been working on this since 2012. So this is
A long time.
this is exciting news that we can do this. We also came up with an idea of maybe investigating if the Land Conservancy could possibly donate some land, and we might even do a third cemetery. So that's a thought at this point, but it was a very successful meeting, and I guess the mayor will be forthcoming with more information as soon as it's available.
What we did is we redesigned the North Cemetery a little bit, that we've reclaimed some land over all the years and have laid it out. So that's what it is.
Yeah, the number is significant, so I think maybe everybody would be happy about that. Second one, the library committee met, and things are great at the library, plenty of good books. They are having their annual dinner October the 1st, and we need participants very badly. I did send out an email, and I think they've been sending them out too. And anybody, I think, would be a very fun evening. They have a great speaker, local speaker, and I hope everybody can join us. It's going to be at Sarah's Restaurant, and it should be a lot of fun for everyone.
Thank you. Anybody else?
One question, if I may. Last meeting, Laurie, it was clear you were going to be doing something on ordinances that, about trees and so on, seeing if they can be tightened and so on. Is that a committee or is that you acting alone?
I think, Mayor, you asked me and Chip asked me if I would participate in that. So I don't know that I have a committee yet, but would be happy to
Just a question.
entertain whomever might be
We-
interested in participating,
You don't
David.
have a committee yet.
No,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is police report. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Everybody should have had a chance to read my monthly report. Be happy to take any questions you might have.
I've got a question, Chief. How much revenue have we raised with the traffic cameras in the first month, the partial month?
The first payment was accepted by Lenders Court on September the 5th, and that ran through. We had about 10 days worth of data on that. Just, by the time they go out and everything like that, they were held in the queue for a little while until we can get things up and running with the court. First payment was again received on the 5th, and we have data, I think, goes through the 15th. So we have 10 days worth of payments.
Well, I understand they have to go through the court and all that. I'm just curious. You're the one who decides which citations to issue. Do you have any idea how much revenue you how many citations, what they all add up to for the month of October or August rather?
Well, all I can tell you is right now, and this is just from the Lenders Court, just as of Monday, through Monday, there were 30 days, there were a total of 2,554 citations issued. Now, that does not mean all of 2,554 will be paid. I want to get that clear.
That's related to this,
That's correct.
to the cameras?
That's correct.
2,501?
54. And of those, in 10 days, we received 308 payments. And that would be from the 15th, or I'm sorry, the 5th through the 15th.
My word, that's a lot of tickets.
What, have they, Greg, have they been 125 or?
Most of them, the lower tier would be 135, I would say 80%.
Okay.
Yeah, we've seen, 200, which would be, that 20 speed limit, and then we even had some 30 pluses in there as well. That would be 30 days, but yes, they didn't start collecting the payments right away. So it took about 2 weeks for them to start doing that.
Chief, can you talk a little bit about the reduction in speed that we're seeing particularly over 60 miles an hour?
Yes, so from the beginning, when we were just collecting the data, and cameras were not live at that point, but we were about 400 vehicles a day, 60 plus, we're down to about 125.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Is it cut down on accidents?
Well, we've only had one out there, and that was the bus accident, unfortunately, which really wasn't related to speed at all.
Was that related to speed or?
Well, not really, more like the driver wasn't paying attention.
Any other questions?
Good report.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. You should have received a copy of my monthly report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Could you tell us what happened to the facade at 6:40? It fell down one lunchtime. I wondered what happened.
My understanding, I was out on Tuesday, the day that took place. My understanding is when they went to move it back into place, it fell apart. That's what I've been
Wow.
told.
What a surprise.
That's what I've been told.
So it was deliberate.
I don't know that. That I don't know.
They moved it quite easily the other way, out towards the road. And why was it different this time? I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I don't necessarily disagree.
Is he recreating it?
I haven't had that conversation with them yet. Not technically, yes, that's what's approved is the drawings, which would recreate it.
Very sad, the whole thing.
Indeed. Yes, Mr. Press.
Oh, Dave, I was gonna ask, on Gates Mills Boulevard, there's been a couple of sawhorses. and
Yes.
That's been there for a long, long time.
Yes.
What are we waiting on?
The pavers to come in for our road program, so we'll have them fix that patch. Yeah, so,
Before the snow flies, right?
yeah, yeah, they're supposed to be, I think, within the next couple days or week.
Great.
Next couple of
Oh,
weeks.
do you know when they're going to finalize Hill Creek,
Well, that's up as far as what part?
the repair on the bridge?
The culvert?
Yeah.
That's in front of you tonight. So assuming you guys approve that, then we would get the contract signed and probably, I would think, start work in October would be my guess with the contractor. If there are no other questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, you had the fire department packet in your packet, and we've lost our fire department. So if you have any questions, hang on to them.
Tom indicated that we gave him permission because the whole department's having dinner, so he said, hopefully the report. I did want to comment, Tom Robinson, that, you know, he made sure before he left that he gave us the longest single 1 month report of
Yes, he did.
calls. I think he got all of the smoke, you know, the cooking alarms cleared out so that.
But when you look at the storm report of all the
Oh, I know,
different
it's-
things, it's pretty amazing.
It was.
Pretty bad, pretty bad. Okay, next is ordinance number 2023-23. This is an ordinance amending sections of 1313.4A and 1313.9A of the codified ordinance of the Village of Gates Mills to add the chairperson of the Architectural Board of Review's Historic District Subcommittee as a voting member of the board, and to specify the procedure for the Architectural Board of Review's Historic District Subcommittee to receive and review applications for building permits in the village's historic district. And we hope that this will simplify and expedite projects coming through. And once we have this approved, then the next is Celeste and the task force to get in place.
So I'd just like to comment, and then I do have one procedural question, I guess it is. You know, out of the comprehensive plan, the process was, you know, we heard a lot of comments that as far as architectural review, it's a pretty cumbersome process. And one of the things that pops out is that in the past, what's the current state is that something for architectural review that's in the historic district as currently written has to come to architectural review first. About 99.9% of the time, they simply then refer it immediately to historic, which meets 3 weeks later. Historic reviews it, then sends it back to architectural. So there's guaranteed to be a 3-week delay in the process. So this, of course, changes that and says that anything related to historic first comes to historic and with 7 days advance notice, and then they vote on it and then or recommend it, and then it goes to architectural. So in concept, we've knocked 3 weeks, 4 weeks out of the timing on that process. So it's not that much language change, but it could be significant. The other thing is we get historic, the head of historic onto the architectural committee. A question for you, Todd. What's the definition of a quorum now with 6 members, not 5 or 7? Do 3 members constitute a quorum, or does it have to be 4? Has to be 4. So that actually ups the burden a little bit, but so that's probably the only downside is that they have to have 4 now, and they have trouble getting 3 out of 5 already. So now you got to get 4 out of 6.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are issues with regard to the committee and the subcommittee in terms of process. And this is a really good improvement, but there certainly are more things that need to be improved in terms of the process, including the fact that we often not often, but there is not a quorum. We didn't have a quorum this month as an example, and there must have been 8, 9 issues on the agenda. So we really do need to come up with some other other kind of tools and processes to deal with these things, to deal with these more efficiently, so that we have kind of more satisfied residents. On the other hand, the work that the Architectural Review Board and the subcommittee do are excellent. And people have said, we're so glad that we had this input, but, so there's good news, bad news. Once you go through it, it's really good, but it's a little cumbersome. So I look forward to working on that with Lori and Celeste and John Spurk and Janet Allwater, who are all involved in this.
Mhm. Yeah, I also think, Chip, that given the importance of architectural review, that having 4 people be the quorum is good.
Oh, it's just more of the mechanics. No, I'm not, yeah.
I mean, they're important decisions, and.
We can't
to
change that.
Sandra's
That's
point,
the requirement. So.
Having the chair of the historic district, subcommittee sit right now there, there's some information that isn't necessarily always being shared.
Oh, I think that's a
So
big positive. I agree.
we really felt that would strengthen, the input that architectural review gets when they're making important decisions about something in the historic district. So I think you're right. I think it's good, but we're not done, to your point. Yeah.
We used to have continuity with John Brown, but when we lost him, that kind of left. So this is a good thing.
Well, I'm not advocating anything different. I think, again, if you have 5 members and you need 3 for a quorum. If you have 7 members, you need 4. And maybe if you continue to struggle to find 4 to show up out of 6, maybe you need to come back and say, we really need to expand the committee yet to 7, only because it, at least it increases the odds. That's really all I was
Yeah,
trying
that's
to
a good
comment on.
You're right.
This is a sidebar. It's not related to this resolution, but I guess I'd like to make it a policy. It's not a resolution, but if architecture review doesn't have a quorum, I'd really like to see an effort to reconvene it the next week or the week after, not make all those people go a whole nother month. They usually don't have that much time. So I guess I direct that to the outgoing mayor and the ingoing mayor and to Dave that we immediately go and try to reschedule for the following week or the next week. So we don't push these people out a whole nother month. This is not good. So anyways, I'm back to the resolution. Anyways, it's
Okay, so this
So
is
moved.
3rd reading. We just need a motion. to
so
approve.
moved.
Second.
Anton,
Yes.
Allward,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner, Welsh.
Yes.
Okay, next is resolution 2023-26. Chip.
This is the resolution authorizing additional funds for professional services provided by CT Consultants under an agreement for the village's comprehensive plan. And this is the 3rd reading, so I move to approve.
Second.
Anton,
Can we talk about it first? I'd like to know your view, Chip, and yours, Sandra. You ran the process of what CT did well and what they did not do well.
I guess we could tick off a few things off the top of our head. We've not formally done an appraisal of the process. So I'm a little reluctant, I guess, just off the top of my head to make comments or to respond to that question.
Wouldn't that have been something you did before you negotiated the final price?
Yes.
Little did what?
Pluses and minuses for their contribution.
We had a scope of work plan with goals and objectives. I'm not sure that we said, what we didn't add what we thought would be the minuses or what we didn't expect. We put in what we did expect.
Any other questions?
we had a motion. Anton,
Yes.
Allward,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is resolution 2023-29.
This is a resolution accepting the rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. And I first move to suspend the rules. This, of course, is a procedural thing that is required each year, and it needs to be done by the end of September.
Second.
Anton,
Yes.
Alberter,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
And now I move to approve resolution 2023-29.
Second.
Anton,
Yes.
Alberter,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is ordinance number 2023-30. An ordinance amending section 95701 of the codified ordinances of the Village of Gates Mills to amend the rental fees, security deposit, police and security service charges for the community house rentals. So this is, we haven't done this upgrade to any of this in quite a while, and in renting out the last year or so, we decided that we should up things a little bit to cover costs.
I would say this is more than a little bit. What's our goal here? To raise the revenue or to encourage the use or to discourage the use? What are we after here?
Well, when you say more than a little bit, what are you referring to?
I did some arithmetic. For a meeting of 150 or more people that lasts 4 hours, the increase in total cost is almost 2.5.
Well, here's what's happened with some of these
Let me
things.
finish. It's gone up by almost 2.5 times. That's pretty significant.
What's that in dollars?
What?
What's that in dollars?
I don't know.
It's $100 more for,
Yeah. It's the police, it's the security that's gone up.
but
the It's-
security deposit rarely gets used.
No, the $50 an hour for police who attend the meeting.
That's if you have alcohol, and they have to have.
That wasn't-
they-
that
they
wasn't-
Pay them.
That wasn't clear.
It sounds here like you have to have security whether you want it or not, if I'm reading it correctly, under,
That didn't change from the current ordinance. The only thing that changed was the amount they get paid.
okay,
Correct.
but why do people have to have security?
If there's alcohol there, then
Then we have,
What if they're not, what if they don't have alcohol?
they don't have police.
then they don't have to have police.
It doesn't say that.
Doesn't say that.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. I mean, I guess the biggest users
We
of
didn't
that,
change it, so I.
But what I'm trying to figure out is, before I vote, is what, are we trying to encourage more people to use it? Or is it oversubscribed? Are we
No.
Trying to discourage them or get more revenue? What is it we're trying to achieve?
We're trying to up it a little bit to cover the to cover the expenses a little bit more.
And we still have to clean and use our personnel. We did do a survey.
So we're just
last
trying to
week.
keep ourselves whole from a village.
Survey a while ago that, compared all the different community, rentals in the area. And Karen had asked that we do that, so we did that, and when it came back, this was
Okay.
to be in line with most
Okay.
communities.
We were below the going rates for the most part. And then, we're really good because if people have weddings here, they end up taking the place you can't do anything else for that weekend because the whole place is involved. It's kind of a little bit problematic, not that we mind.
But Mike, to your point, I think you raised a good issue, and David, about the alcohol. It's not in there. So would you want to add that as an amendment?
what did-
Typically have working staff, people reserve that, goes to community house staff, they put on their police needed or not. So they have a chance to review it first. So a lot of times when you come,
Mike has a little bit of leeway in relation to this.
Okay.
I'm not,
And then there's a separate form that goes to the police when police are required.
I guess I'm not one that likes to just defer things for the
This is all we've had.
sake of deferring things, but this is I guess I don't think it would hurt to maybe have a little history of how much does it get used. I don't know. I don't know how to respond other than,
Well, these prices are in line with other communities' rentals of community houses. We went Mayfield Village, Mayfield Heights. Do we have Highland Heights too? I can't remember.
Unlike you, I'd like to know the order of magnitude we're talking about here in terms of use across a year. I mean, we have the players who come here often.
They don't pay.
Why,
Oh, that's
why
free
don't
for
they
them.
pay?
Why don't they pay?
It says in here there are organizations, I believe, that don't have to pay, or it's in the rules for the community house.
And how about the art show?
We actually can pay, it's a village function.
Doesn't pay? Okay.
Community club, garden club, if they have something,
Actually, private parties that pay the rental.
correct. Showers, weddings, that kind of stuff, parties.
Okay. Thank you.
I do believe this came up in long range planning about raising rates at some point.
I, probably in the past, I just don't
Right.
recall when we did that, and I think we should always be looking at some of the rates
Well,
Correct.
we charge, but
you know,
This brought us to, with the other communities. Sandra?
well, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but if we went back and took a look at how often it's used and how many people and et cetera, how is that going to help us with this decision? I'm just thinking if we defer it, what information do we need that's going to help us better decide whether we should charge $100 more?
We're not. We have plenty of days open and whatnot for the most part.
I mean, it's a good question, Sandra. I guess if it's only used 3 times, then what they do, but if it's used, 150 times, we're gonna impact that and we're making it a harder, so
That's not this impact.
Yeah, I just have no feel, I've never focused on it, I've never heard anything about it, not aware of how often it's used, so I don't know, I guess I can't quibble if this is equal to the communities, is that every community, is every single community charge 250 or some charge 200 and some charge 400?
Mayfield Village charges a lot more. I will tell you
Okay,
that.
well, I'm, okay, with all due respect, you just said that this is what all the other communities charge. I don't know.
We asked Mike, who actually collects the money and whatnot on this, and he thought it was reasonable.
I mean, when we do budget next year, this could represent $350 more in our revenue.
There you go.
I guess I'd just like to have a sense. I don't know. I'm not big on
Jeff,
playing, but
We spoke with 7 different locations: Mayfield Village, Highland Heights, South Euclid, Kirtland, Concord, Willoughby Hills, and Beechwood. Security deposits ranged anywhere from $75 to $500, and 4 hours ranged from 120 up to 500, 6 hours from 180 up to 750. And there were even 8 and 10 hour and 12-hour rates. Some
That's
have,
a wedding that would go,
some have additional
day.
cleaning fees, security deposits. The security deposit can vary based on whether there's alcohol or not. So that's what we found out.
I guess an alternative is party centers, right? There are lots of those around.
I said that again.
An alternative to using this place would be a party center, not another civic center.
Just to
I
clarify,
don't know what they charge. I have no idea.
just to clarify, this doesn't affect the players or the art show or
Correct.
no community events, so. Well, this is the judgment.
It probably would be good to clarify that security services are only required for private parties with alcohol. Maybe I
They
would
give
have-
2 checks and usually they get the security deposit check back.
Right, but she's talking about having
Security
Talk about
services.
alcohol.
Security.
Yeah, I would put it in here just for clarity for people.
We can do that.
This is just first reading, right?
Yes.
Well, if it's first reading, that good. This has been a good discussion. I guess that's what I was suggesting, that maybe at least we walk around, see what other questions come to mind, because I didn't focus on it before tonight, quite frankly, so.
We can add the police. Anything else?
Well, maybe if Mike were here and could answer some,
Well, normally he would
If you
be.
have questions
Yeah.
that you want to ask, you can just email them to me and I'm happy to find out from Mike.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we're gonna make it first reading, is that?
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry, I, again, don't like to delay, but.
Next is a motion to authorize Reed Consulting Group to proceed with phase 2 of the broadband proposal for the village. Lori?
Thanks, Karen. So we had the feasibility study phase completed, and what we concluded and what the recommendation is from the committee is that it is feasible, but that we need to move forward with phase two in order to have a more concrete and factual view of what the alternatives are. We have raised with Reed Consultants that they had indicated in their report that there were some items that we needed to come to consensus on. For example, capital investment threshold, our appetite for higher residential rates, how to handle take rate commitments, and so on. So I just want to clarify that part of phase two would be I know I'll call it a workshop, but meeting with the consultant to reach consensus on the points that we think we need to know in order to go to RFP. So there would be further discussion around, what that would look like. And then, of course, phase two would take us to RFP if we determine and, that that's what we want to do after having, after talking about the consensus points.
Lori, can you remind me what the dollars we're talking about here for this phase two?
Actually, it's quite favorable to us. It's a not to exceed 40,000, and the phase one was 15,000. And I think we received an invoice for 13,000 and change for phase one.
So I'm sorry. So it's an additional 40 for phase two,
Total of 40.
effectively up to, could be 27 since we've only spent 13.
Right.
Okay.
And what happens in phase two? Or in the remainder of the 40,000, what are we buying?
So for phase two, what we are buying is, let me just read you the, so in other words, reaching consensus, working with the consultants to reach consensus on some of those open points, and then doing the RFP, helping score the RFP, negotiating contract. If we get to that point, we receive RFPs that meet our requirements. And then to complete negotiations with an internet service provider.
On the RFP, my inclination would be to wait and see what happens in Hunting Valley. They've gone through the same process we have. They've made their decision where they want to go. And they're now doing the detailed contract negotiation. I think we would probably benefit from knowing how they arrived at the decision they did, and also what they've put in the contract and what they haven't. I'm not inclined to get in front of that myself, but
I don't think we'll be getting in front of it, Michael, because I think they're down to two potential.
they've gone with one and they're in contract negotiations now. I can't tell you who it is.
Well, no, of course
I
not.
do know who it is, but I can't tell you.
Well, and, contract negotiations would be extremely confidential, I'm sure at this point, but given that, we're already, just going into this phase, I don't think the timing will be an issue. I think it sounds like they will be done before, we get there. So it sounds like it's working out perfectly for us in that regard.
This is a dumb question, but can't we just piggyback on Hunting Valley and we could save $40,000?
No, no, I mean, we don't really know what they're doing, and Hunting Valley is a lot different than Gates Mills, both geographically, number of households and so on. So we really need to take our own look at what makes sense for our residents. They've got some different criteria. For example, cell service, that is a big deal for them. They have issues with cell service. Our village is much different. And we've already spent 15. So we're really only talking $27,000
Having
more.
sat through both processes, I actually disagree with that. I think they're very similar. David and I sat through their council meeting when they got it down to 2. And I've had further conversations when they got it down to 1 and where they stand in the contract negotiation. So I respectfully don't agree with you.
Okay.
You know, my concern is that we were given a proposal back in March that included both phase one and phase two. Obviously, we have a right to now make a decision based on phase one. My take from the last council meeting is that I don't think we really have exactly know what it is we're trying to get an RFP for. And I've had conversations with you, Lori, and with Ann, and so I think the process, I guess I probably for tonight should have gone back and read the exact language that's in the proposal, which I for a variety of reasons didn't get a chance to do. But I'm not convinced at this point, with a better understanding from phase one that we learned at the last meeting, at least I personally am not sure I fully understand. And I've talked with you and with Ann, and you guys have gone back to the consultant about that I'd like to do a workshop. Ann thinks that was a good idea. She's talked to the consultant. They think that's a good idea. Is that now part of the 27,000?
It is.
Okay, and that would be, I assume, the next step. Now,
Right.
then my only question is, since we don't actually know what we're doing at this point, and we have a workshop, hopefully we would then have more clarity. And if we have more clarity, it's possible that we might decide that we don't want to do anything further than just that workshop. And
It's
so I
possible.
don't know what that means if we approve phase two, which in my opinion is approving 27,000. So it's only clarity that it's very possible, if not likely, that we'll want to go to the whole point of a final RFP. But it just seems that it's a little premature because speaking for myself, I'd like other council members to say, do you really understand what we're getting into at this point? And I don't, maybe everybody else does, and I'm just thick on it, but I'd like to see a workshop where with the consultant, obviously.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, but
That's
can you
exactly.
can you break the workshop out
Yes,
as
you
a separate
can.
piece? I think
Yes.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, the workshop could be broken. I mean, do you want a separate cost on it? But that's not what we approved. We approved a phase two with a contract amount of up to 40,000. So, which is again, favorable for us, so not to exceed 40,000. So if we just do the workshop and don't do anything else, we'll get billed at their hourly rate for the workshop.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so I think we're good.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you're basically saying we'd be signing up at an hourly rate to conduct a workshop. And then from that,
And then if we don't go any further and we don't use any more time, then, because it's a not to exceed.
ah,
So
Well-
it's very favorable, I think, and I think it's very reasonable.
that
Given-
sounds fine to me. So as long
I
as
think it's
the
favorable. and
record
I-
shows that we're going to proceed now into phase two, and the first step is to do the workshop, and it's going to be effectively charged to us on an hourly basis. That's all I'd like the minutes to reflect.
Why not just buy the workshop on the hourly basis, defer the decision on phase two till after we've gone through the workshop?
We can do that just by
Yeah.
having the workshop only. So I think it's built into the
I think
contract.
that I was saying somewhat the same thing.
Yeah.
Because that's all we're really. signing up.
One of my concerns, and this is very complex. I mean, I'm not familiar with all the details of this, and I hope that the workshop would help us address the questions that Reed said we needed to,
Mhm.
reach consensus on.
Yeah.
So, and that would be the goal for me for the, for the workshop, having, moving forward then with an RFP, or at least having that as a potential, it kind of keeps the ball rolling. We've been looking at broadband for years, and we've been shadowing, Moreland Hills for years too. And, this is a top priority that our residents have talked about. It's a big issue. So for me, kind of keeping the ball rolling forward is important. And maybe, Mike, as we're going along and we come to a point where we're ready for an RFP, we can see what's through your contacts, maybe take a look and see what's going on at Moreland Hills and incorporate that.
You save some money.
Yeah, maybe save some money. So I see this as being flexible, but having a relationship with,
I just
with a
don't want to
vendor.
go through the RFP and then decide we don't use it. That's what we did last year. Last year, we did an RFP. I was on the committee at that time, and we had 4 different suppliers come in, make presentations to us. They came back at least twice. At the end of the day, we didn't do anything with it.
Right, but there was no consultant involved, and I think the determination.
Actually, there was. I don't know that we were paying them, but Ann had a
Oh, there was
consultant.
an advisor, but I think at the end of that process, the conclusion was that we villagers didn't have the expertise to be able to understand and come to the best solution here, and that we really needed professional help because of the complexity and the number of options and different ways you can go.
That's correct. We needed help
We needed-
at that point.
We needed help.
A quick point, there are workshops and there are workshops. I mean, who's going to be there? Is it going to be public? Is it going to be videoed? I mean, all those things. Is it just council? I have no idea. I was at a workshop 2 weeks ago and I was very disappointed with it. And I would hope that the workshop that we're now contemplating was a lot more participatory for everybody in the room. Whoever's in the room.
You mean if people want to ask questions and so
Or
on?
have ideas. I mean, there may be other people in the village who know a lot about this stuff we don't even know about.
Well, hopefully our consultants got a good handle on that, but if people have feedback or comments, sure, I mean, why not?
And are you contemplating a council
Yeah.
workshop or what is it? Who's going to be there?
Oh, you know what? Well, us to understand,
Council will
reach
be there.
consensus, yeah.
Workshops are usually for council to understand the subject, whatever it is.
Fine,
We don't make decisions in a workshop.
understood.
They're just for information,
Yeah,
and I'm
fine.
hoping that the consultant would, I mean, I do think we probably all have to really start thinking further. We did have material from the last meeting and come up with questions. I agree with Sandra. I'd very much like to move this, and your explanation, I think, is very workable, but now I understand. You've been probably trying to explain this to me in a couple of calls and I didn't get it till now, so.
Well, and if there's material that he wants us to read read in advance or review, that would be good too. So we're not cold.
Sure.
Or even looking back over the RFP.
This is the question for Janet. Janet, have we appropriated the $40,000?
Well, it wasn't in the budget, but we have enough appropriated right now. We appropriate for the year. So we still have room in our appropriations to cover it.
Right, I understood the appropriations were exactly equal to the budget. That was it.
Were when we first did the budget.
Okay, so you're saying we've
But
got some
already
space.
increased Other professional services and other expenses in administrative areas. So right now, we just cover.
So a point of clarification,
Okay,
when we appropriate, as you know, at the beginning of the year for what we believe the budget will be for the year. With the understanding with council that as we find ups and downs, we'll come back for additional funds if needed. We don't appropriate for every expenditure. We appropriate for line items. So for example, in the typical department, we would appropriate a certain amount of money for personnel costs. That includes salary, fringe benefits, overtime. It doesn't include a specific amount for a specific person.
I think what he's.
So when we, just real quickly, let's just answer it. So when we appropriated for professional services, that it included consultants for broadband, okay? We didn't specifically have to lay them out and say we're approving so much for this consultant, but we are appropriating, you are appropriating so much for professional services. There's money left in the professional services appropriation to commit to the additional 27,000. Is that
you're
right?
saying we've spent less than was appropriated.
On some other line, that's correct.
It's going to, it's only September. We appropriate for the
Well, that's
year.
my problem. If we could commit to this, are we squeezing something else out that we had in mind?
But we may have to appropriate in November
The
or
appropriate for
December.
The additional thing.
Correct.
All right. Because an appropriation would require 3 readings. A motion doesn't require 3 readings.
I don't think it requires 3 readings.
If it's a resolution, it does.
No, it doesn't. Under
If
our
it's a
charter
resolution.
and under state law appropriations.
Because it's financial.
It's not a resolution? Is that what you're saying?
Either a resolution or ordinance, they can be the same thing under the law.
Oh, I understood from the brief.
But for appropriations, there doesn't have to be 3 readings.
Okay, well, I misunderstood that. Thank you.
Let me just add a bit of complexity to this. Let's assume we go forward with the $27,000 and the appropriations there. And let's assume that we go forward with just the workshop section, and that's $3,000 to pick a number. And the other 24,000 we haven't yet spent. But we come back to January and February and say, okay, we now know what we want to do here. And we want to do the other 24,000. Because the year will have lapsed, we'll need to come back to you and say, we need to appropriate 24,000 within professional services. We'll need to appropriate money in 2024 for that, even though we talked about it and approved it 2 months ago.
Fine.
So when you see these things coming back, sometimes it's not that was overspent, the calendar has flipped. And we only have so much appropriation room per year.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we need to approve.
A motion to
Forward.
authorize.
Right, motion to authorize Reconsulting Group to proceed to phase 2 of the broadband proposal to the village.
Oh, wait. I thought,
Oh.
I thought we were gonna agree to buy the workshop first and then make the decision on the phase 2 following the workshop.
But I think that
No,
this is
no,
up
no.
to, so if we decide after the workshop, we're not going to do anything further, then there's no additional cost
All
incurred.
right, if we can do that, that's okay.
That's my understanding.
Yeah,
Clear about
that's
that.
Excuse me?
And workshop is in there.
I would suggest that the workshop be put into the
Yeah,
scope
why
of
don't we put
services
it in?
here.
I agree, because we've, it's
So
a
something to
critical
the
part
effect
of
that
this.
there would
Todd,
be a
you're
workshop
exactly
with the
right.
consultant to determine the issues needed for the RFP.
So can we add that to the?
But isn't that changing the
motion.
scope of whatever Reed Consulting proposed? Because they didn't envision a workshop.
It is. it
So
is
now we're
changing the-
sticking
it is
something in and
changing
saying
the
you have to
scope.
do more for your 40,000.
Exactly.
But you talked to them about the
On a not
workshop.
to exceed basis.
We did, and let's see, I've got his response in writing here somewhere. Let's see. Workshopping the various issues make good sense, could be a series of topic focused sessions. I would recommend one session, just because of time and expense. Oh, sorry. So yeah, he said that makes good sense.
Okay,
So-
we're going to include that on the scope of services, that a workshop will be included.
Yeah, I think we should include it. The original scope of services was fairly general, which gives us room, to be detailed about how we're actually, what we're actually getting, I think.
And let me clarify, they're going to bill separately for these different things within it up to a certain point. So if we stop after the workshop, we're still good.
We're still good.
Or if we stop after number 2 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, with those adjustments. or
Why not
amendments-
just break them apart? And
Well,
do the damn
we'd have to
workshop
go back
first
and
then
redo the
figure out where we're
contract.
going to go from there. We might decide to go a whole different direction that there wouldn't be enough money left under phase 2. I don't know what we're going to decide after the workshop, because I don't think we're all on the same page right now on what we want to do.
Right, but I think we need the workshop to determine that.
So Mike, at the end of the workshop, you're not suggesting that we wouldn't pursue broadband?
Not at all. I think we probably want to go down that road,
Right, and
but I
we're,
don't think we're at that point where we're ready to decide that yet.
okay,
I know I want to go down
and
there.
and at that point that we decide, wouldn't we want to do an RFP?
Well-
Okay, so we would do, ultimately, we're going to do an RFP to move this forward.
We might decide in the workshop that this isn't the right consultant. I don't know what we're going to decide.
Okay. All right,
So.
I haven't had any exposure to them other than the brief thing we saw last month.
And did you maybe have some color to
Sure.
add that might be helpful? That'd be great.
On. It looks like it is on here.
I think it is on.
It's on. Okay, to clarify a few things,
your name?
Ann Whitney, Chagrin River Road. We did not put out a previous RFP. We asked providers to come tell us a range of what they could offer the village. It was not an RFP. They each came once, they did not come back. And then we interviewed consultants. So the scope for Reed is for up to $40,000. And an RFP will tell us what providers are willing to provide the village of Gates Mills, keeping in mind what neighboring communities are doing. In my mind, if you want to move forward with broadband at all to find out what providers will offer us, we need to keep going with a consultant. So Reed, the scope was laid out originally as one scope. We broke it into phase 1 and 2 because that's what you guys wanted. I think we've already stalled. We've done phase 1. Phase 2 is to move forward and move toward an RFP to see what providers would offer the village of Gates Mills. So breaking out a workshop is something that we could discuss. I don't see, the workshop would be for council to come to consensus on parameters for an RFP.
So it's part of the process.
It was not a workshop to then decide if you want to do an RFP. It was a workshop to come to consensus on what was handed out at the meeting. So
Ann, I guess then that, what I heard from Lori is what we're being asked to do right now is effectively to start moving forward on the next step. And that if, because each step we're going to get billed for, and if we chose to stop at that point, that's all we're going to get billed for. We're not going to get an invoice for 27,000.
we do not get invoiced separately. We got the invoice for phase 1 with each hour broken out of what it was. No, it is not set up so that we get invoiced for each step of phase 2.
I understand, but if we did, I'm not suggesting we would, but if we did stop the process after the workshop, we would only get billed for the hours they put in at that point.
That is my understanding.
Okay, so I guess implicitly, we're being asked or authorized tonight to proceed forward. And if we want to view it that it's an hourly basis, I think our intent is to try to get to an RFP. We think that's where we want to get to, but as Michael said,
Yeah.
you know, we got to understand more of what our scope is. And certainly, given that scope, I'd certainly like to just have them take us through again, given this, take us through how you're going about it. You said, well, I'm only going to talk to 3 providers, you know, and, oh, okay, I don't know.
An RFP is a public. It's not just given
Yeah,
to
right.
3
Good point.
providers.
Good point.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I think I'm personally good with this. It's kind of a unique way of doing it. We're not authorizing to spend 27,000.
No.
We're authorizing to spend up to, but we can stop at any point in time where we can get billed for time incurred at an hourly
Correct.
rate up until
Yeah.
that point.
So, and I guess further, and your committee made a recommendation to us to work with Reed. You reviewed other consultants. So in a sense that you've done that work for us. However, if for some reason during the workshop, we don't think it's a good consultant, we can always change our mind, but we do have a relationship with somebody now who's kind of looking out for us.
Reed has a very good track record. They've got amazing experience and the referrals were glowing. So I think we need more information, but I want to clarify, a workshop is for council to get on the same page on the things that were listed at the back
Right.
of the handout from the last meeting.
Right.
It's not a workshop, an open workshop on the pluses and minuses of broadband. It would be for council to get on the same page to move forward.
Right, but, you know, to say it's a public meeting, it's a workshop for council, but we can announce it, and if people want to sit out there and
Right,
somebody happened
correct.
to get out and come to the microphone and said, you know, I happen to have 25 years experience in this, and I think you guys are doing the right thing, except for A or B, I'd be delighted to hear from them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd welcome people to come and listen, because I'm sure there's some people out there that have thoughts. I agree. I'm not looking to have a public meeting to have people start saying, I don't want broadband. I do want broadband. That can be when we get more down the road, so we know what it is we're trying to get. But But I think we've got enough direction from all of the input we've been getting over the last year and a half, 2 years that we want to move forward with this. I thought one of the most interesting points in the presentation last council meeting was if we don't do anything, we're going to get cherry picked, just like Hill Creek was cherry picked. Hill Creek is now off the table. They don't care about this anymore.
Right.
But that's going to progressively happen to little spots around. And then the rest of us that aren't in densely populated areas are going to be sitting here not able to get any
High and dry.
high and
That's
dry.
exactly
So we
right.
need to move forward.
That's
So,
exactly right.
Okay, again, we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Anton,
Yes.
Allward,
yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Welch.
Yes.
And thank you, Ann, and thank you, Lori. I've been partially asking a lot of questions and I feel very good. So apologies for all my questions.
Love questions. Thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda is a resolution number 2023-31. This is for the CHIP.
Yeah, this is a resolution accepting a bid and the award of a contract for the Hill Creek Lane Culvert Head Wall Extension Project and declaring an emergency. I will be asking to suspend the rules, but first, the proposal is for $65,000 in rounded numbers. Probably at $64,845. We always try to provision some money for culvert work. But this one obviously has turned out more extensive than what we budgeted. As you might recall from our road program, we talked about that depending on certain things unfolding, we might want to decide whether we repave or address the parking lot here back by the service garage. There was concern last week that the pavers might start their fall work. Obviously, it's any day now that they're going to come in. And so I had suggested to Chris and to Dave that if they start right now, at least make sure that the service garage paving is the last thing they do, so we would have time tonight. I am recommending that in addition to this is an emergency and we need to do the Hill Creek thing, but that we defer the service garage. So to try to stay within budget, we don't do the 61,000 for the service garage and we do this instead. So it's sort of a two-pronged. You're approving this, but if you're okay with the authorization to Dave and Chris that they not that the pavers not do the service garage parking, that helps from a budget standpoint.
I'm assuming this is more urgent than the repaving the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, Dave agrees that it can certainly, and we're gonna have to take it up next year in the budget. I understand we're pushing it out, but no, this is it's a temporary fix at the moment, and if, it could break down. So we need to get it done, and we don't want Mr. Welsh concerned about driving across it every time he goes home, so. So I'd first like to move to suspend the rules.
I have a quick question, Dave. Is this going to affect you? If we delay your project on the service garage? Okay.
I'll second.
Yeah. This is the second time that head wall is broken off. I think it was a bridge at one point and then they filled it in, said that was the fix. And now it's washing away because we're getting such a runoff from Mayfield Heights. So this is going to be a continuing problem, I'm afraid, just from erosion.
Chip and Michael made a motion to suspend. Anton,
Yes.
Allward,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Welch.
Yes.
Now I move to approve resolution 2023-31.
Second.
Anton,
Yes.
Allward,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner. Yes. Welch.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is ordinance number 2023-32. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2022-39 to revise the salary of the fire chief / emergency coordinator effective September 17th, 2023 and declaring emergency.
Move to approve. Do we have to?
We have to suspend.
We have to move to suspend?
Second.
Eton,
Yes.
Alberter,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner. Yes. Welch.
Yes. Move to approve them.
Second.
Eton,
Yes.
Alberter,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner. Yes. Welch.
Yes.
Next is ordinance 2023-33. Ed?
Um, I'd like to congratulate the mayor on getting this thing finally resolved. That I'd like to propose that we accept this ordinance to limit the purchase of graves to 2 per person in the village, because in the past we've had large plots picked up and then over the years they haven't been used. So we have a lot of idle land, and especially in our South Cemetery, where people have, with good intentions of taking a large plot for their family and then over the years have not used it. And now through generation after generation, we can't even touch it to get it back. And a lot of families don't want it, touched. So the idea of this provision would be that we limit it to 2 per family. And I'm sure there might be an exception to it, which I would assume the mayor would adjust to, but I would like to move to suspend first this proposal.
Question, Ed. Does it limit purchases going forward only, or does it also apply to purchases made in the past?
Just going forward.
Thank you.
I would like to just make a side comment. When I first joined council, this was one of the areas we looked at was our fees and other things. And of course, we know that we're tight on plots, and it's nice that we've found a way to get an increase. I'm anxious to hear what that number is. But I thought one of the other steps that's in here was that we would go back and look at those that we have not heard anything about for at least 75 years. And go through the steps that if we still never hear anything, that we would declare those open, so to speak.
Yeah,
And
I was under the
I don't know what that
impression
process is, because I don't think we've done that much.
I believe the process is we'd have to post it in the newspaper.
Whatever, but I'm just,
I know there's been an attempt to contact different families. The mayor's done that for, as I said, this
Actually,
project,
Mary did it with a layout from the cemetery a number of years ago.
because I looked at my file, it goes back to 2012 where we started this. So
Right.
There hasn't been much acceptance from the families, generations following it to do anything with this. But I mean, if we want to recycle it again, it would be a
Well,
great idea.
maybe in the short term with these additional plots, we don't have a need, but we've been getting so tight. And certainly there's at least one plot out there that was reserved and paid for 75 years ago and nothing's ever happened.
Well, the concern
long
too
gone.
now is that these plots will be eaten up, never used, and but people are looking forward to, in my own case, my own wife, we have our own plot, and it's a very ticklish situation, and I don't know how we.
That's one of the reasons we're limiting it. So
Yeah.
in the
I like
hopes that it'll be
resolution. I'm just
helpful.
Curious as to the status right now. Do we have like a waiting list of people who are?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so if I wanted to buy one, I would have to get on the waiting list.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other thing is,
Nobody on the waiting list until we
Yeah.
get through the, waiting.
Right.
in the case of cremations, for example, we,
an influx of people
Yeah.
all at once.
Right.
We've
So
only
we're
had
going to go
this
through the
going for
list and then
years.
we'll see where we are.
Can I get added to the list for one?
Let me think about it.
Okay, on that note, did we have a motion?
Can we vote on that at council? I don't.
Ed
like-
made a motion to suspend. Do we have a second?
Second.
Eton,
yes.
Alberter,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner. Yes. Welch.
Yes, I'd like to make a proposal to
Move to accept.
accept the wording of contracts in the village cemeteries.
Second.
Eton,
What are we voting on?
approval.
We're actually.
Approval.
Of the motion.
The ordinance itself.
Of the ordinance.
Yes.
Amendment.
Alberter,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press,
Yes.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Welch.
Yes,
On this topic, can I make a request for the next meeting that you come forth, Ed, with a review of the fees that we charge and compare it to some of the prominent cemeteries around.
Years ago.
I understand, and every time I look at it, I think that we
In the
still
past,
grossly
we charged,
undercharged.
I believe it's $100 a grave, but you had to be a village resident.
No, it's
Uh,
$1,000.
But it was at 100 at one point, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And 1,000 at Lakeview, it's 5,000.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm just saying that, it's,
And
it's-
Kathy.
and we don't have capacity. So,
Right.
Really,
sorry, but
more intimate.
Now, the other thing is, we're going to look at some expansion here too, so this is not an ending situation. I'm not going to say dead end, but it's something we have to really look forward to, possibly a third cemetery.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to be unduly pecuniary, but if you have something that's in short supply and you know the demand is large, you normally auction things. I mean, could we put these on eBay?
it's a different way of doing pricing, but yeah.
I know people would think that was horrible. It's a thought. And and the second thing is, shouldn't the fee take care of all the future costs for maintaining the grave, which is the village's expense? I'm kind of interested in how much it costs to maintain the cemeteries. Are we recouping sufficient to not to justify raising the prices?
What we charge for the plot itself. And then we also charge fees and whatnot once there is a burial and whatnot on it. There's really not a lot beyond
Well, I
that,
don't know.
the way that there's
I
some.
don't know.
The philosophy in the past has been that you lived your whole life in Gates Mills and you paid taxes throughout the whole time and supported the village. Don't we owe you something,
Yeah, we do.
to go to rest?
Let's
And
find out what the proper price would be and maybe we
so,
can discount it.
um,
There are.
Well, we did go through that. And actually Kathy Goss came to the meeting, Chip. It was great.
Yeah.
Good.
I think the last big expense we had is that one of our village people cut down all the trees in front of the North Cemetery and we had to replace it all. And that's the last thing I think, and that goes back, 20 years almost now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is resolution number 2023-34.
This is a
First reading,
resolution.
Chip.
There's a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept a grant and to execute a project award agreement with the county of Cuyahoga for the village's Chagrin River Road Public Sidewalk Extension Project and declaring an emergency. Now, out of the comprehensive plan, we got a lot of comments and suggestions that really for safety, among other reasons, we ought to look at trying to get from the lower school parking lot to the community house. Certainly summer camp, school kids, other things. The mayor has been working on this. Karen, you're going to have to clarify. This money we're asking for the,
This is county money that is coming to us, $157,000 toward the project. But I believe after the first of the year, we're going to have to apply to, at the moment, I'm thinking the biannual state budget to get the difference that we'll need to do the project.
so we're not actually asking for approval to do the project.
No, we're only
asking for
receiving the
approval to
money.
Receive the money. If we choose not to do the project because we couldn't raise any more, we don't want to spend the money, then we just don't use it and, right?
You have to return it.
So we'd have to return it. So we're not, so I just wanted to be clear, we're not asking for approval for the project. But I think it behooves us if they're ready to give us some money.
The project will
I'd vote
bid
that
at a
let's take
point
it.
in time.
And then we can decide later.
Vote later, right?
So anyways, I just wanted to be clear on that. Now, do I need to suspend the rules?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing I do is move to suspend the rules.
Second,
Anton,
Yes.
Allward,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Love.
yes.
Now I move to approve resolution 2023-30.
You've got a question over.
I have,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so, the project is supposed to be over the $157,000. Let's just say 250 to pick a number. And, the county's going to award us 157. And in the agreement, section 2, it says, if the project has more than one funding source, you see there has to be two funding sources. If someone's going to make up the other 93,000, The award will be dispersed upon the receipt by the recipient of all other funding sources. So we don't get the money until we clarify that there's all funding sources.
Okay.
What that means is we would either commit ourselves at this point to fund the project so that we could get the funding source, or we're going to wait in line for additional funds to come next year through the state or somewhere else.
But would that affect getting this once if we can in fact get some other funds and say we've got the other funds, so now we get this, right? Doesn't-
Well, you're saying, I don't know. I'm just raising the point. We really can't accept the money unless we commit
Yeah, okay,
that we have the other 93,000 either from ourselves or from someone else.
okay. I hear you. So again, I was.
I
trying
think
to
we should
clarify.
do that.
Well, I think we should do it too. It's just that we want council to realize that essentially you're approving, not that we start the project, but you're approving spending $93,000 on this project.
But
No,
there's not a timeline on it, if you will.
no. Then I want to be perfectly clear. I don't know if it's 93,000. We don't have a firm quote yet. We haven't worked out all the details. And we obviously think we have a chance for more money. So that's why I looked at this and said, great, if we can at least get in line for this money, let's get in line. Maybe I was technically incorrect to say we'll get a check in the mail for it, but what I'm hearing is by approving this, we get in line. We now have our place in line for this money. We now have to go raise the rest. And once we've raised the rest, we get this money plus the rest that we raised. That's what I'm hearing, yeah. I don't know, Steve, I mean, I hear your point, but so either.
When you said, let's get the money, okay, we're not going to get the money.
You're
We're
right.
gonna get in
I'm
line to get the money.
correct in that. What I'm
Okay.
saying is that we get in line at least.
To get in line.
Yes. We have to approve it to get in line. If we don't approve it, then they say you got the money, but you haven't told us. you got it."
I just make sure that nobody's going to expect a check for $157,000 to come
Appreciate
next
it.
week.
Yeah,
Okay,
I hear you. I'm glad. You're right. 'Cause I
Okay, thank you.
misrepresented that, so.
And so we've estimated the total cost, but we don't know for sure because we don't have bids, right? Okay,
I don't even know that we've estimated at this point.
okay.
We had it presented to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Presentation count to the county, and they only awarded them 40.
We had a grant application to the county, and I believe it was $250,000. But we were only granted $157,000 because that's all they had. They split up with a few other people that applied.
But Karen, you have some hope that you think we can get some more money.
Yes,
So I'll go back to, I see no reason not to
This is good.
approve this, even though.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you agree, Steve?
yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So Chip, you made a motion to approve. Do we get a second?
Second,
I have a question. We're not approving $75,000 of conservancy money on this project, are we at this point?
No, it's nothing to do with that.
This is
When-
for
when-
sidewalk.
This is
Oh,
on
sidewalk.
sidewalks.
I'm sorry.
This isn't for the culvert.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
this is just receiving the money from the county
Got you. I'm sorry.
toward the sidewalk
I'm
project.
We'll get to the culvert next.
Eton,
yes.
Allward,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press.
Yes.
Steinberg.
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yeah,
Thank you. Next is resolution 2023-36. Chip,
This is a resolution accepting a bid and awarding a contract for the Mayfield Road Culvert Project and declaring an emergency. But before we get into this, I'd like Chris to give us an update. The bids were received last Friday. He will give us a status, and I think he's going to make a recommendation for us to consider.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public. My cost estimate for this project when it was advertised was $400,000. So the low bid is at $491,000. So we've got some issues with state law. The bid is more than 20% over my estimate, which in my mind and in the opinion of the law director, he can certainly speak for himself, makes the contract unawardable. This was placed on the agenda kind of preemptively because we had opened the bids on Friday. So we wanted to make sure we had a slot on the agenda, could populate it with the information and then discuss it between the time the bids were opened and this evening. I've also done some additional research. I believe that by rejecting the contract, all the bids tonight, and then re-advertising, we have the opportunity to get more competitive pricing.
the timing of the bid, the type of equipment that's needed to do this. It's kind of a very specialized niche type installation. This is a large diameter bore underneath Mayfield Road over hundreds of feet. Availability of material and equipment right now is at somewhat of a premium. I think that is reflected in the bids that were received. So my suggestion, based on what I found out, based on where the bids came in compared to where my estimate was, is that you reject the bids, all of them, and that we program it for re-advertisement over the winter. We'll do some additional discussion with contractors to make sure we have a sweet spot as far as timing goes. If there's anything that we need to tweak as far as specifications, materials, installation methods, et cetera, to make it more reasonably priced, we will do that. And I'm pretty confident that we should be able to get bids that are going to be down around the $400,000 number, which is where my estimate was to begin with.
So we'll rebid it before the October meeting then?
No, it's to be rebid over
Over the winter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we
Is there any risk, Chris, by delay, that we'll have a problem because of the condition of the existing Mayfield Road culvert?
I mean, the problem that we have, Councilman, is that we have occasional flooding of the intersection as a result of heavy rain. So, I mean, we could get a heavy rainstorm tomorrow and have a problem. It's difficult to predict. But
This
those,
has been going on for 20 years.
yeah. So the service department, the police department have got their responses to the issue pretty well honed at this
Yeah.
point in time, as far as closing the road if need be. So certainly there's a safety concern. But since it's been ongoing and we've got an opportunity to secure better pricing, I think we're obligated to try to do that.
I'm all in favor of better pricing.
Is there any way we can circle the wagons and go back to the state and see if they'll cover this?
This is not their responsibility.
Is there any risk we lose most of the funding for this is coming from state grants? Is there any risk we lose that if we defer?
The ARPA funding, go ahead if you were going to say something.
The majority of the funding, the 368,000 that's on your schedule there is, it's not state money, it's federal money. Essentially, it's 220,000 of that is county awarded ARPA funds that we competed for and won. The balance is the village's ARPA funds that we were awarded. As long as those are appropriated by December of 24 and spent by December of 26, we should be okay.
Great.
And that schedule is, I mean, we will not, 24 will come quickly. So if we wait until the spring to rebid this, we'll need to wrestle with this early in the year.
So from a procedural standpoint, I have to ask our law director, because the bid came in more than, I think even right now, the law is 10% over. But it's, since the bid came in more than 10%, the state says we have to reject, but we have the right to override that. So if we don't take any action, it gets rejected just on that basis. Do we have to take action as a council?
You cannot override the 10%. We have no ordinance that sets forth our ability to do that, which we could do under our home rule authority under the Ohio Constitution, but we don't have that. So we're confined to 10%. Right now, it's going up to 20% October 3rd. The state legislature changed the statute. So
Still didn't help.
no, it doesn't help this at all.
So we can't even.
So it's important though that council pass a motion rejecting all bids for the reason that it exceeds the 10%.
And that drops the flag on me being able to return the bid bonds to the contractors as well, which they like to have, because then that keeps their bidding ceiling intact so they can go out and bid other jobs.
So I'm actually not asking for a motion to accept. I'm implicitly asking, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is we have a motion to approve and I'm hoping nobody does. Is that what we're saying? I don't think I've ever done that before.
A motion to reject?
Effectively.
Motion to reject the bid.
Okay, so-
And you don't have to deal with resolution number 2023-36.
Oh, okay.
If no one moves to suspend the rules or pass.
Okay. I don't hear anybody.
Just a thought, if we told the contractor that if he lowered his price, we could do the project this year, Otherwise, he's not going to get the business because we're going to bid it widely and aggressively. I mean, have we tried? I mean, I'm sure you have. I mean, that would be my first thing. What? It's not the way the process works. I mean, isn't this?
Government.
Publicly and then negotiate a better price. That's not what.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Welcome to government. So,
Well, by delaying this, will this jeopardize the safety concerns or will not affect it? As far as,
Well, we're not solving the safety problem.
But we know how to handle
are
it
we
when we do
creating
have a
one, I guess,
safety
but-
issue.
We're maintaining status quo for maybe an additional 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so do you want a motion to reject the bid?
okay. So, I move to reject, the bids that have been received for the Mayfield Road Culvert Project.
Second.
Anton,
Yes.
Allworder,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press, Steinbrink.
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think it's important to remove this from the council's agenda. So council should have a motion to remove this.
Okay, so we need a motion to remove resolution 2023-36 from the agenda.
So moved.
Anton,
Yes.
Allworder,
Yes.
Deacon,
Yes.
Press, Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, council matters.
Got a question regarding Hawken. So I think we talked about this at one point in time. They pulled all the business out of the post office here,
Oh, yes,
but they're still using our post office mailing address, Gates Mills.
they still have a box over there, yes.
Okay, so is there anything we can do to prevent them from using a Gates Mills mailing address when?
No, because that's a government entity, so they're allowed to have a post office box there.
but
Anybody
So
can
they
buy a-
maintain one post office box there, but none of the mail's being directed through there. They moved it all to Chester.
Well, I think they receive mail at this post office, but for the most part, they mail out of Chester.
Okay, thanks.
Had another matter. We just approved applying or getting in line for a grant for public sidewalk between the school and the downtown area.
Talking to the microphone, Sandra.
Between the school and the downtown area. It just makes me think about another issue with regard to connectivity. And that's it's Gates Mills Boulevard, which I've heard from so many people about the fact that people are using that as a 2-lane roadway when it's one lane. And it's very dangerous. You know, cars go fast down there and they, they're next to each other and sometimes there's somebody walking on the road or a bicycle. What would prevent us from going ahead and putting a bike lane in there? We do have a sign that said it's single file cars. With a bike lane, you address a couple of issues, which is it provides a bike riding space and it's going to cut down on people, vehicles to abreast.
Chris, you want to?
You got to turn on your mic.
I turned off my mic. Question of clarification. Gates Mills Boulevard is a 2-lane road in Pepper Pike. It's a 2-lane road in Mayfield Heights. It's the same road physically in Gates Mills. So why isn't it consistent? Why isn't it all a 1-lane road or all a 2-lane road? I think it's kind of confusing that you're coming all the way down and then all of a sudden it changes to a 1-lane road.
Well, I don't
Aren't
know
any
who,
narrower than.
I don't know who made that decision, but in Gates Mills, it's a one-lane road.
It's the width of the road that merits it. Do you want to speak to this?
It is,
Chris.
as far as a bike lane goes, Sandra, just so you know, there are specific geometrical requirements for a bike lane.
Mhm.
And the portion of Gates Mills Boulevard that is closer to Old Mill between Chartley and Old Mill would be wide enough to support a bike lane. The portion that is between Som Center and Chartley is not wide enough to support a bike lane, which has to be, I think, full 6 or 7 feet wide, and then leave sufficient room for a driving lane. That is similarly the case on why it's not 2 lanes between Som Center and Chartley, because there's not sufficient width for 2 full lanes of required width.
Well, I agree with you that it's 1 lane now. But I've been here since 1978, and for the vast majority of the period I've lived here, it was a 2-lane road. And it's the same
Well,
road. The road
hold-
hasn't changed
hold on.
its width.
Hold on a second. In 2008, we resurfaced the road with federal money, and the county was involved in that as well. At that time, we had to review the geometry of the road. And it was determined by the county that the portion between Som Center and Chartley is a 1-lane road based on its current width. So it may have been driven as a 2-lane road up until that point in time, but since 2008, when we resurfaced the road, it was designated as a 1-lane road. And because of complaints similar to what Sandra had indicated, with the way that people were driving it, there's actually signs up there now that indicate that it's a 1-lane road.
I'm aware of that. Did they actually change the width of the road when they resurfaced?
No, but it was being driven as a 2-lane road without sufficient width, so it was determined to be a safety issue.
Is the road wider on the other side?
The road is it's much wider. Oh, on the west side of the
Going-
circle.
going
Yes,
west.
that's right. It is
Mayfield
wider.
Heights and Pepper Pike.
It
Is
is.
it wider?
It's wider than the portion between Som and Chartley.
Chris, could you paint the lines?
Yeah.
You
I
paint
mean-
like white, lines?
Yeah, my suggestion would
If
be
it's
is,
not a bike lane, but just.
so
a
there's
line.
there's a pavement marking approach called a sharrow.
Yeah.
Which actually most bicyclists prefer to bike lanes from what I've heard, and certainly anybody that's a biker can weigh in. A lot of times what happens with bike lanes is you get a mark, the cars don't drive on them, they end up capturing a lot of debris, which the bicyclists
Yeah.
don't like.
Yeah, yeah.
With sharrows, what you do is it shows that the pavement is a shared pavement between pedestrians, bicycles, and cars. Those would go along the curb lane on the right-hand side. I believe that both pavements are of sufficient width, both sides of Chartley, in order to support that. So we can certainly investigate that and see if that would make sense to do something along those lines, along with some potential additional signage that might help to better direct people.
Dave can save some money by plowing it as a 1-lane road because he plows it as a 2-lane road.
I would appreciate it if you would do that. Thank you.
And see how much cost is involved with the lining, whatever that
Yeah.
is.
And if, talking about grants, if we have another option for some money for that. Thank you.
It's possible. Any other council matters?
A couple of observations on the comprehensive plan, if I may. I personally thought the workshop a week ago was not as productive as I'd hoped. Not sure why, just I can tell you why, but I don't know why it happened that way. And I was very disappointed it wasn't videoed for people to see. One thing in the comprehensive plan that I think people don't understand, and people I talk to don't understand, is the way our real estate taxes work. The arithmetic that I think is a good approximation is that if, as is stated in the plan, we have room for 90 new homes in the village, if we used all vacant plots with existing zoning regulations, 90 homes can be fitted in. I have no idea where that number came from, but it's a number in the plan. I want to just look at, if we were to build $50 million worth of new homes in the village, the real estate tax revenues to the village would be no more than if instead we raised our real estate taxes by 1.25%. That's the way the arithmetic works, and Janet can probably refine it. But if we are trying to understand what the real value of development is, one of the primary things is the incremental real estate taxes we'll get. Well, I'm saying that incremental real estate taxes we will get from $50 million of investment. And the county says that we have 650 million invested in this village right now. 50 million of investment, that's 50 homes of $1 million each. The income, the real estate tax income for the village will be no more than if we raised our village tax plus plus our existing taxes by 1.25%. And I think if you said to people, if you have this choice, which would you prefer? I think I know what most people would say. If it were a real choice, and I think we need to understand that arithmetic. If we're going to be talking about the ideas in the comprehensive plan about increasing development, then behind it, there's a message that it will increase real estate revenues, real estate tax revenues. And I'm not sure that's the case. My view of the arithmetic is that it's very, very highly leveraged in favor of simply having a small increase in the existing real tax levy by the village. Are there any questions about that? Because I think it's very important, and I never heard that quantified before. And I think it needs to be as a backdrop to this plan. And if it's wrong, we ought to know how it's wrong.
I sort of hate to say this, but I think you also have to look at the impact of the income tax revenue too.
Well,
right?
I'll get
I
to that.
sort of hate to mention that.
I'll talk to two things. You're broadening the conversation. I was just showing a redirector. Income tax, we've learned today, is impossible to predict. We can have a very expensive house with someone living in it who doesn't pay any income tax at all because he's residing in Florida half the time.
Right, but there's probably a way of determining approximately what households are income tax paying and are, actively working
Well,
versus, I mean, you could,
you could
so
say-
there's still an incremental, I mean, I certainly could say,
Can we just?
say it, but I don't think you can look at it in a vacuum is all I'm
Well,
saying, David.
Yeah, but Lori, let's clarify something. The comprehensive plan doesn't recommend developing 91 properties. It is simply a factual statement that the private properties in this village with current zoning could, if the private property owner so chose, under existing zoning, there could be 91 houses. There's nothing in the plan that's encouraging development of 91 houses. It is just a statement of fact.
No,
So
I
you don't need to be going to the voters to say, would you rather do this?
No, I understand.
This is
that.
not,
I
not,
just-
it's not in part of the comprehensive plan. It's a statement of
No,
fact that
I-
it existed before the plan and it will exist
I
after.
understand
And the
that,
plan isn't saying to do anything about it. It's what existing zoning.
Lori,
but I think you-
hang on, you're broadening the conversation. The second element is, what would the increase be in service costs if we had? 50?
Exactly. That's my only point is that,
So we need to understand this whole
that
equation.
you do have to have a holistic look at,
Absolutely right.
when you're looking at decision one versus decision two. No, I totally agree.
No,
And I'm not saying-
There's not a decision one. These are private property rights according to existing zoning. This isn't, we're not choosing as a village to develop 91 homes.
I never said we were.
So this
I
isn't,
just think-
there's no decision one versus decision two. That's all I'm saying.
Well, when you're evaluating what your options are, all I'm saying.
We don't have
is you
that
have
option.
to take, let me finish, a holistic look. To David's point, that's one factor, but you do have to look at all the factors.
I agree with you entirely. And I think
That's all I'm saying.
the question is, are we trying to encourage development? The rules are the rules. But we've talked about incentivizing this and incentivizing the other. I think it's as if we're trying to get private owners to do something they wouldn't otherwise do. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know where that is.
Yeah.
The fallacy in all this building and everything too is that, and I think that's witnessed by what happened on Epping Road. When you build a house, it doesn't hit the tax rolls for 3 years plus because you have to have a year to build it. And then the tax itself is delayed a year before you get it. So you don't just, get immediate revenue. It happens way down the road. So we don't realize anything out of it, right away.
Anything else?
Second point on the comprehensive plan. I believe that we need to get an external expert legal view on whether this document in any way jeopardizes our existing zoning. That's just an opinion. I know Chip and Todd had a conversation that was reported in the advisory committee meeting, but I think it's more serious than that. I know, for example, that in Hunting Valley, they're very afraid of being told that 5 acres is too big a zoning limit for homes. And we don't seem to be. I am. And I think a legal opinion would be worth a lot to put us at ease that this document doesn't jeopardize our existing zoning. I'm not a lawyer.
I guess I'd just like to comment that the Northeast Ohio expert on zoning is sitting right next to me. So I think we did turn to the expert.
He's an expert on ordinances. Is he an expert on the law?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, I'm just.
How
Jeez, oh,
insulting.
man.
How
Yes.
insulting.
Chair, I'm
Oh,
just
my
saying,
gosh. I can't believe you said that.
Maybe it's.
Do your homework then, David, please. Do your homework.
Well,
He'll
must
tell you
be-
that.
It must be a matter of opinion, because I remember you guys brought in as to the comprehensive plan as your expert, Bruce Rinker. And Rinker said something very similar to what David's saying.
Well,
So-
he's retired and Todd has taken his place in that role. So he was at the time, but it's Todd now.
Okay, well,
But the document had a lot of facts about the village and the history of the village and how it evolved and,
Sure.
and what people's variety of reasons, that they move here, grow their families here, et cetera. I guess I'm taken aback by the fact that document with that history and, a statement about zoning would somehow threaten the village. You could point at so many things, like the priorities, the top 7 priorities had to do with fire and police safety. It had to do with the views, the viewscape, services, connectivity, amenities. Talk about housing was really, I think, in the 2nd tier and some in the 3rd tier. So it's in the plan, but it's not even a priority. And to say that again, it jeopardizes
I
the
didn't say it does.
legality,
I want
the
to-
safety of the village is
You always misunderstand
Irrelevant.
what I'm trying to say, Sandra. You're not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I know that Hunting Valley are very afraid of this issue. And if they are, I think I am. I certainly am. And if Todd's the expert, then maybe he should write an opinion for it.
Does that fall under the retainer?
I would say that when we went from 2.5 acres to 5 acres, it was voted on by all the residents. And part of what we looked at that time, because I remember looking at it, Steve was part of that too, at that time, was the services. So we wanted to control our services to the village overall. And that's one of the big reasons that we did it. So in order to jeopardize our 5-acre zoning or change it or whatever, it would have to go back to the voters. Is that a fair question or a fair thing to say, Todd?
Simply because the voters might approve something does not make it legal in the Constitution.
I agree with that. But I also agree with Karen. I think all major zoning changes should go to the voters.
I agree.
I don't think council should be able to change zoning without input from the residents.
But they don't have to go to the voters. Give it to the voters.
Weird. I wasn't trying to impugn your resume. I don't know what your
Oh.
resume says.
No, I understand.
I just think that you're part of this team. And I think an outsider would have a slightly different leaning path in the first place. That was why I suggested outside.
Let me build on your point. And maybe, Todd, maybe for the next meeting or something, does Hunting Valley really have a reason to be concerned? And whatever their concern is, would it be applicable to us? So it had nothing to do with our comprehensive plan. It's just, in fact, the comprehensive plan very emphatically made very clear that, do not change our lot size zoning, which is our 5 acres. So, so if there's something that, we ought to be at least aware of and briefed on, that would, I think it'd be a good place to start. Now, if we want to get other opinions,
I agree with that.
we can always do that, but.
There's a plus point too, that they suggested, unless I'm wrong, that we look at the entire village as a historic village versus just a historic plot. And I know our first home in Gates Mills was up on Gates Road. So, it's the little area we've framed out here, could be expanded.
It's actually not such a little area, Ed. It's surprisingly almost half our village.
Part of the village is versus the whole
I
village.
think you're right, Ed. There's things that aren't in the so-called historic district that are historic. I agree with that. There's also things that are in the historic district that aren't and probably shouldn't be subject to all the restrictions. So I think
And
it's worth
actually, the
taking-
comprehensive plan recommends to revisit all
To
that because it,
revisit
it is a little convoluted, however, it was.
Yeah.
presented.
There's
At
also,
any rate,
Michael, restrictions on you, you may not be in the historic part, but if you can be viewed, if you can be seen from the historic part of the village, then you are subject to the historic rules.
interesting, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
Right.
That probably does bring in most of the rest of the village.
Tough bunch.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure it's right.
Anything else?
You're an attorney.
Are we ready for business from the audience? Nothing?
I live at
Oh, got to speak into the
State your,
microphone.
address.
620 Chagrin River Road. I have a question about item number 16. Motion to authorize the consulting group to proceed with broadband proposal. What exactly is that? The broadband's a very loose term. It doesn't really define anything. What are we talking about?
I would say for all intensive purposes, we're looking at fiber optic installation throughout the village.
Okay, so what you want to do is bring fiber into the village. Okay, all
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
right, yeah.
That's the
Broadband-
thought,
right.
but
Broadband describes actually just a service, but the service needs to be described in terms of bandwidth and speed, basically.
right.
Right. And on that, I just would make a comment about your RFP. This is my background. Please make sure that you dig deep into that. Your RFP is not what people are going to tell you they can do. It's what you're saying you want to do, right? So, and that's going to become your contract. And as a contractor, I make a lot of money on change orders. So be careful with that.
Thank you. John.
What's that?
We have your name. We know where you live.
Oops.
I think he's volunteering, don't you?
I think so.
Okay, all right.
Please attend our workshop, Dennis. So.
Well, I'd be happy to help.
Good, good.
The other item is just, this keeps coming up a lot and I live right next door to 640, obviously, 620, 640. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about that very quickly, about what I've seen and observed and tell you that, in my opinion, with 27 years in contracting and civic construction and go on, but that house was rotten. I'm sorry, folks, and I know people are upset that it came down, and you should be upset. I get that. But that house was rotten down to its core. Those 8x8 hand-hewn beams, many of them were rotten. The foundation supporting it was a disaster. So the thing that I would say to someone who is upset about this is make sure that you're directing your ire in the right place. Because all of that decay did not occur in recent months or even recent years. It's occurred over a long period of time. A lot of neglect has caused that. Many years of neglect. Water intrusion, pests have been in there, all kinds of pests from insects to vermin. And I saw that for myself. And in fact, as I sit in my office, my window looks right at it. So I watch everybody and I go over a lot and probably bother them when I shouldn't, because I like to watch, because it's an interest of mine. But I would just say, consider that that's when all of that occurred over that period of time. So if you want to be upset with somebody, don't be upset at the owners who are trying to make something good out of what is a bad situation. But consider being upset at the many previous owners that allowed that home to get into that condition. Because I own one of those homes now, as many of you do. And you know, they take work. They take constant diligence. It's hard to keep one of those homes up. First thing we did when we moved in less than 2 years ago, had Ohio Basements come in and put engineer 16 supports under that thing. And that's just the way it is, you know. But when you get down to a structure that's that rotten and decayed, there's nothing you can do except replace it, in my opinion. So I would just ask that as you're thinking about this and talking about this and consider that, so that's all I had. Thank you for your time.
So what,
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Hello, everyone. Mitch Bass, 1249 Sugar River Road. Two things. One, I want to say we're really close to the cameras that have been installed on Mayfield. And I don't know what the feedback is or when that system officially kicks off, but it's made a dramatic difference. At least we can even hear and feel and see the difference. My only thought on that is, I don't know if there are plans to go in the other direction, but people now seem to exit the village very quickly. I don't know if you see that or what, but just thought I'd throw it out there.
We do have cameras in both directions, east and west.
But heading up the hills. So you'd be surprised how people leaving or passing through, everyone slows down now, but leaving the village, it's pretty intense still, I would say. So, we live close, we hear it, we hear the trucks and the traffic and see it all. I drive Mayfield a lot and it has dramatically changed. So that was nice to see. The second thing is, I just wanted to bring up, I know there's been some discussions previously, and I've talked to some of the residents about just sort of the invasive controls within the village. And I just kind of wanted to
What did you say?
resurface this.
Invasive control?
Invasive controls.
What is that?
So
vegetation?
Vegetation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I guess most specifically the land conservancy plots, because I'm gonna just assume that most of the independent landowners are working to take care of their own properties. But it's become an interest of mine simply because the previous owners of our place did a clear cut on the property and didn't manage it afterwards. I'm guessing you could deem it an illegal cut within the village or whatever the ordinance was, because they didn't have permits. And so I've spent the last 5 years living in my house, having different individuals come in, managed by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. And I've been able to go to some of these programs federally and state to help support what I'm doing on my property. And it's been significant. I mean, just this spring, we planted 800 new trees since we've been able to manage cutting all the vines and the privet and all these invasives that are now in our village. And it's amazing. It's an ongoing process. Just even this spring, there were 3 people out with the ODNR. They found 2 or 3 new invasives they haven't seen in Northeast Ohio in 30 years almost.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, the one specifically was gypsum weed, which is highly poisonous and or I think they call it thorny apple, whatever it is. And the grapevines, at least on my property, have transformed into, it's called it looks like a grapevine, but it actually grows a berry, and it's 2 or 3 times more difficult to kill than a regular grapevine. So even when you cut it, or when the services in the village are cutting these vines that are all on the electrical poles and things like that, they have a resilience to come back. So, I mean, I see it just because I'm in tune with it, and driving up and down River Road, plus just the damage it does to all the trees. Across from us is Land Conservancy, which trees took out some of the power lines this spring. And so I just, in speaking with John Keene, who's the service forester for the area, just actually several times today, I told him I was coming to council, just to sort of bring this up. There is a significant amount, I mean, millions of dollars available to the village to help support this. There's urban tree canopy forests that literally within the village area, they help even with simple things like pruning and just management of things that are safety issues. They offer millions of dollars in grants that are available. And because of the federal programs for Inflation Act that they're releasing, those program dollars are going up 2 or 3x over the next 5 years. And these are all renewable programs. These aren't, okay, we're going to get one hit through the village. I mean, this is something that could impact the village, especially the conservation land, which I'm sure doesn't have a ton of resources available, to have groups come in and get this stuff under control. Because as much as I've spent and done on my property. Right across the street is 8 acres of conservation land that's literally, it's a carpet of these vines, and it just destroys everything. And so I know in the plan that we all just spent many hours revising and speaking with folks on, one of the things is maintain the village beauty and all that stuff. Well, carpets of vines don't do that, and tree of heaven and all the big invasives. So I just thought I'd throw it out. I can't say I have unlimited amount of time, but I have many emails and folks connection and service foresters, and these people, I could tell you, Hunting Valley submitted with, I believe it's the Cleveland Watershed Group, to one of the grant funds. They submitted 50 million for their village. Last year, unfortunately, they got a little over their skis, so they were turned down with that. But there are millions of dollars available, and Ohio Department of Natural Resources and all these folks are willing to help, and they'd love to see Gates Mills, because it's so heavily consumed by the invasives, be sort of their shining star moving forward, to show other communities around what they can do. Tree canopy restoration, there's resources, and all these people, I mean, this is what they do day in and day out. Like, they want to get the money to Northeast Ohio.
We're going to get some of this information from you, Sandra. We're going to set up a little meeting.
I just thought I'd throw it out there. And individual homeowners, also for the Land Conservancy, you can apply for all those federal grants because it's not a federally supported 501 group, right? Yep. So
On our advisory committee for the comprehensive
yeah.
plan.
So
thank you very much.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you.
On what he's saying,
Charlie,
we applied for and got free grants, free federal grants. And they're easy to get, and we begin to put them with the open up an area for monarch butterflies, they would free canopy. The other one was just free. It's available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can bend it down to you. Just
Okay.
pull it down. There you
Not
go.
quite that tall. Okay, my name is Roberta Levinson. I live on Gates Mills Boulevard, 6705. And I'd like to address what you talked about, the traffic on Gates Mills Boulevard. Now that we have speed cameras on Mayfield. We've lived there for 25 years, and I have, up until April, I was almost a daily walker. I'd walk the length of Gates Mills Boulevard, the whole, from Som Center all the way around and back. And there have been many times I've been almost hit by cars trying to race down or speeding. I mean, just, and we have people who have muscle cars that love to, they stop a few houses up and you hear them rev up their motors, and then they just go flying down the boulevard. Rarely we see just people, single cars. So in April, I had the misfortune of falling flat on my face on Gates Mill. I tripped on a piece of loose concrete, whatever. And at least 2 or 3 cars drove by me as I was lying face down on the pavement. So it gave it, and going fast, but fortunately somebody came by because I had broken my kneecap. So anyway, that's not my point. My point is, at some point when the signs went up for the single lane, I believe the police officer that spoke said that they weren't going to, how do I say this? They weren't going to ticket people for that. It was just putting it up to what so people constantly do that. And I have begged, I've called the police department and asked them to, they said they could sit in our driveway to clock speeders. And they sometimes sit right opposite our house on Cotsworth. But it seems like it's at down times of the day. If you could be there between early in the morning or late at night, like my husband had to go out the other morning early and to turn, we're on the north side of, going on the eastbound side of Gates, westbound side of Gates Mills. And you can't even get out of the driveway at that time. The traffic they cut through from Mayfield to avoid the traffic on Mayfield, or maybe the speed, but they've always been, not just now, but anytime there's construction or whatever. So this is a thoroughfare. So, I mean, if we're not ticketing these people, we're not providing any
incentive to follow the right. So from the pedestrian standpoint, because there are many people that walk on that street or run. And my fault had nothing to do with that, but I mean, I was worried that somebody would run me over because they even when they have more 2 lanes almost, they drive sometimes really close to the curb. Fortunately, somebody did come by, an employee from the Mayfield Heights, and he helped me. He was wonderful. But anyway, that's my concern, that there's to be some incentive for people to observe the signs. Otherwise, why have them? Yeah. Good point. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for.
Anyone else? You have to come up and state your name and whatnot.
Runner, biker, walker of Gatesville Boulevard. And I think what's really a problem now is we do have the sign that says it's 1 lane, which is great. I'm a fan of that. But the problem is you've got folks who are driving in the middle as it's 1 lane. What happens is these folks who are not adhering to that will go around on the side. I've been one of those walkers who had to move out of the way in fear that I was going to be hit by a car. So that is a big concern. I totally agree with you. And I think something should be done about it.
Could you just state your name and address, please?
Yeah. Rita Petty, 35600 Dorchester.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening. I'm Sean O'Hagan. I'm at 7638 Colvin Road, and I just wanted to stop by tonight. I'm here with my son walking back from the library. I wanted to stop by tonight first. You know, I'm real excited that I hope it went well, but that the first reading or whatever reading of the agreement to enter in with the county to create the sidewalk up to the school, I hope that is well received. That is a really important improvement for the village. And just following up on, you know, the concerns about pedestrian safety on Gates Mills Boulevard, I'm really glad that folks are talking about that. And I, for a while, have really been concerned about the sense of what pedestrians should be doing to protect themselves in our community. You know, there was a resident that spoke at the meeting last month that really was so troubled by somebody walking down their street. And, you know, our village tells people to walk on the street. I don't care what the Ohio Revised Code says. Our village is constituted to say, walk on the street. And we should have warned them tonight because it got dark. The season's changing on us. We have like little orange wands. We've got headlamps. We've got our reflective things. That stuff we do to protect ourselves, that is an inadequate response of the village to say, pedestrians, protect yourselves. People speed through this community. Members of this community speed through this community with like reckless abandon, and it makes it unsafe. The messaging should not just be towards pedestrians. The messaging should be through to drivers to settle down. And we should be doing what we can to create sidewalks and to make the 1 lane Gates Mills Boulevard like have multimodal access for folks. That is very clear. So thank you for moving that direction, but let's go. Like, let's do it. Like, we want it, we need it, and we know that. So let's keep going.
Thank you.
Sean.
Anyone else?
Another member of the advisory committee.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, another member, Sean O'Hagan, member of our advisory committee.
Around than it used to. But anyway, here I am. I'm Don Levinson, the other half of the dynamic duo from that young lady who spoke about tripping in Gates Mills Boulevard. My concern has to do with the plan that the village has been looking at for some time. And my concern is that we are, how do I say this? We are possibly jeopardizing the legal aspects of our properties and the zoning that we have. And I would like to bring that to the attention of council and mayor and our visitors and my fellow citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? We need a motion to adjourn?
Executive session.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Well, I think you want to announce that we're going to go into executive session, so nobody needs to stick around because when we come out, we will officially adjourn, but we don't need to tape any longer or anything else, so
Thank you.
No action will be taken.
no action will be taken when we come back, so other than to adjourn the meeting, so. Second,
We need a motion and a second to go into executive session.
Pending litigation.
We need a motion. Who made the motion?
Yeah, Chip, are you making a motion?
okay, what am I saying specifically?
A motion to go into executive session.
I move to go into,
Second,
I move it to motion to go into executive session to address pending litigation.
second,
Anton,
Yes.
Allworder,
Yes.
Chicken. Yes. Press, Steinbrink,
Yes.
Turner. Yes. Welsh.
Yes.
I'm gonna go check.
No, we were gonna go in there. Oh, boy, you ready for this later?